Can we be weird? Let's be weird. I'm gonna be weird. I'm just a girl, and this is my favorite everything.
Welcome to episode 2 of My Favorite Everything, and I'm your host, Molly Holmes. Guys, how are we doing? We are really going to get into the thick of it today with some very important lore, Molly Holmes lore, all about my working experience. Now, I do feel like I've had quite a few jobs, but I also don't feel like I really jumped from job to job. I think I'm just kind of old. I have some notes here because I got overwhelmed thinking about God, I've just done a lot. So I started working when I was 15. As soon as I turned 15, I was like, and my family was very much like, go get a job. I started working at, Seafood Sam's. Shout out to Seafood Sam's. And real ones will know, Seafood Sam's is it's like a very small chain restaurant on Cape Cod. There's one at Falmouth, Sandwich, and oh God, I forget where the other one is, maybe Bourne. And honestly, I don't even know if they're still all in working order, but what is the word I'm looking for? In service? Are they all still there? I don't know. I'm pretty sure the one I found those because I guarantee my mom would tell me if Seafood Sam's shut down because that restaurant's very near and dear to her heart. For those of you that don't know, my mom used to work for the local newspaper in Falmouth. She hasn't in more than a decade, but she used to work for the Falmouth Enterprise. And so she was the ad representative. So she got to know all of the local businesses, and so she was like, you should get a job at Seafood Sam's, like the guy who owns it's really great, it's whatever. So I'm like, sure, I could give a shit, I just need to get paid. So I went. It's a fast food seafood restaurant. I hate seafood. I always have, and I always will. And I grew up in a very seafood-based town. Obviously, we are right on the water, and the whole town revolves around seafood, and I have always hated it, and guess what? I still hate it. Anyways, that didn't stop me. I said, hey, here we go. So anyways, my job was, there's cooks, line cooks right behind you. Then you're up front, you do the cashier thing. People come up to the counter, put in their order, and then you, like Burger King or McDonald's or whatever, when their order's up, you say number 355, or your order's up, whatever, they come up and get it. Great, right? Pretty easy. And really, there's not too many standouts from this job. I don't have wild stories, but I will say, I think it's really important to acknowledge positive work experiences. This was my first job, but obviously now I have a lot more experience and I can reflect on it. The man who owned it, oh, help me. Mike Williams? Crap, I'm gonna have to look this up. Shout out. Why can I not think of his name? Anyways, love him. I hope nothing problematic has come out about him, but he was a great, he was the big boss. He was the owner, big boss, but he was always in and out. He was so funny, really genuinely cared about his employees, was always in the back talking to the kitchen staff, was coming in and out, making sure everything was clean and up to his standards, but no, this is wrong. He was really kind, gave everyone a lot of grace, but we got shit done. And I will say that is probably one of the cleanest work environments I've ever been in. He was and my manager too, also forget his name. So sorry about that. They were so good. They really cared about the food quality, food safety, training people properly. They were never condescending. I feel like it was just a really fair work environment. And I will never forget that because I, of course, then had work experiences that were the opposite of that. Everyone has, where you have this horrible boss and a horrible manager. Everything's micromanaged and no one cares about the quality of the product. And I really... I can't speak to what's going on now, but I'm sure if Mike, whatever his name is still running it, I'm sure it's, the standards are still there. So that was a really beautiful sort of working experience. I think I stayed there for maybe a year and a half. So that was great. The other thing is I will forever, anytime I hear, what is that song's name? Give me the B-boys to free my soul. The original version. Okay, not Uncle Kracker. Don't ever speak to me about the Uncle Kracker version, okay? I don't want to hear it. The original one, I'm not kidding. So Cool 102 was always playing. Shout out Cool 102, miss you. That godforsaken song would be playing every single time I had to clean the bathrooms, okay? And I didn't really mind cleaning the bathrooms. I've always been someone who's like, dirty work, whatever, I don't care. Sure, I'll do it. No one else wants to do it, Molly will do it. Very much Charlie from It's Always Sunny. This is Molly work. It's scrubbing shit stains off of the toilet at a fast food seafood restaurant. Sure, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, sure, guys. So anyways, I'm not kidding. I swear to God, every time I was in that godforsaken bathroom, that fucking song came on. When I hear that now, anytime since then, something like a screw comes loose inside of me, and I could punch my way through a brick wall. The way I hate that song. So if you know me and you have the opportunity to have the aux cord around me, if you put that song on, I will crash that car. I'll find a way. If I'm not driving, I'll find a way. So log that away. Just jot that down. Okay. Moving on. That was Seafood Sam's. Love you. Hope you're still open and doing well. Okay. Yeah. So next, wow. I worked at Sears in upstate New York. I had moved up there with an ex who was 25. Hey, I was 17. Is that cool? It wasn't a good time. He was very abusive, and it was the darkest time in my life. So Sears definitely added to that ambiance. I'll tell you what, wow. It sucked ass. Easily the worst job I've ever had. There was no training. You don't get trained, and then they hand you this thing. And I was like, you know, merchandise, whatever. You have to like set the clothes up and put them on the mannequin and set up these displays, but no one tells you how. They kind of just give you this graphic, and you're like, I don't understand what any of this means. And then when you don't do it right, everyone yells at you. And I was like, okay, well, this is great. I did quit after maybe 2 months, and I just threw my name tag down and I just left, and I just never went back. So that was another example of just like, guys, what are we doing? That sucked ass. And, you know, I did get out of that relationship. So isn't that good for me? I'm very grateful. So moving on. Okay. Yeah. Next we have the doggy daycare. Okay, guys, I've worked at 3 different doggy daycares in my life. It's a very easy job, and this one is to stand out because it was run by an escaped mental patient. And I'm not kidding. I am kidding a little bit. I don't think she escaped from an asylum. Okay, but this woman, I don't even know if this was her real name. Okay, her name is Judy. I cannot find any trace of her on the internet. People used to go, she was a CPA. Should I be telling you this? I don't know. I don't care. I don't care. She was a CPA, certified professional. She's a tax accountant or something. What's a CPA? Certified professional accountant. I think I got it. Okay, so anyway, she was that. Allegedly, people would come to her and have her do their taxes, and then she would make me answer the door when people would come up to the house, and she'd be like, you have to answer it. And I'd be like, okay. And she'd be like, I'm not here. I'd be like, okay. So I'd be like, hey, hi. They'd be like, where's Judy? And I'd be like, oh, she's not here. And they'd be like, well, she did my taxes wrong, or she filed like a fraudulent tax claim. And I'd be like, oh, she's not here. I'm really sorry. Okay. I'm like 19. I don't have any idea what's going on. So that was kind of my immediate indoctrination into what can only be described as, I don't know, it was like, it ended up being like folie à deux, which is a mental disorder where 2 people have a shared delusion. She normalized all sorts of stuff that like really wasn't normal. This is not like an abuse trigger warning or anything. It's not that. She was just on drugs and an alcoholic. And I didn't really get that for the first little bit. And then I was too far in. And also she was letting me like run this business, and I was surrounded by dogs, my favorite. And I kind of just was not managed at all. So anyways, I come in, she's like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I have a lot of tax stuff and real work to be doing, but I have this daycare out of my house, and here's what we do. And here's what makes us special, Molly. We take the dogs off leash. And I was like, oh, cool. And she told me all about pack mentality, all that horse shit. She's like, yep, we take them, we load them up in the cars, we take them out to the woods, and then it's like a free-for-all, and they're so free, and because they're bonded to us, they won't leave, and they're bonded to each other. And I was like, sure, I guess. I mean, I was really growing up conditioned to just trust older adults. There was never any like question things. No. So I was just like, yeah, totally. So on some days there were up to 14 dogs, all different ages, sizes, breeds, whatever. We'd load them up in our 2 cars. Eventually it was just me, just me, because she was either too drunk or she's passed out or she was MIA, and I was just running this business, not getting paid either. That's a whole other part of the story. Anyways, okay, so imagine me, poor 19-year-old Molly, who's just trying to do what she's told. Okay, I have fucking 14 dogs in my Saturn wagon, hatchback. Very important. They are, I mean, there's 2 dogs in the front seat. Everyone else is just like on top of it. Honestly, one of the most unsafe things you can picture. Picture that. Okay, 14 dogs in a car, just picture it, okay? Not every day. Some days it was just like 10. Some days it was only 5, and I was like, thank God. It was like a vacation day. So I get these dogs in the car. Okay, we go out. Either we were going to the cranberry bogs, which those are a thing in Cape Cod. We go to the cranberry bogs, or we go through this path in the woods that honestly did then lead to a cranberry bog also. There's a lot of cranberry bogs involved in this tale. Okay, so if you don't know what a cranberry bog is, I don't know how to help you. I'm just kidding. I'll tell you. You can also Google image search. And it's great. There's like these big, how do I describe that? I don't know. There's these big like basins seems too extreme. Divot seems too small. I don't know. These sunken features of the earth where they grow the cranberries, and you've seen the commercials for Ocean Spray where they like flood them. But most of the time they're not flooded. Some of the times they're only like halfway flooded. But anyways, then you have these big elevated kind of walking paths. And of course it's all surrounded by trees because it's Massachusetts. There's a lot of trees. So anyways, take the dogs down there. No leashes, none. Okay. And I'm just trusting that the dogs are going to come back to me. Now, what would happen when we would see other people down there? Usually we didn't. And I don't know how that's possible. It was disastrous. And I'd be like, oh, they're friendly, whatever, which me now deeply cringes about all of that. First of all, the dogs weren't safe. Second of all, I wasn't safe. Third of all, anyone who came across us wasn't safe. All the dogs I walked were friendly. That doesn't matter. The people who were walking their dogs, I feel so bad because if their dog was aggressive, that would have been really bad. Also, the dogs would like run up. Sometimes people's houses like abut the back of the cranberry bogs. They'd be going up into people's yards. One time the cops were called. Probably more than once the cops were called. Dogs would run up and like scratch the cops' doors. It was not good. The cops always were like, hey, you can't be doing this. Like, your dogs are running all over people's houses, like in their yards. People who are on the trail, like, you're not supposed to do this. And I was like, okay, yes, totally. I'm so sorry. My boss said it was okay. And they were like, okay, like, okay. Yeah, hindsight, that was really dumb. Anyways, so then we started walking them. I started walking them in the woods because we wouldn't really see anyone. But then, okay, I don't know what it was. There started being this thing happen where people would cut off deer's heads, cut off their antlers, and like just throw the head. Okay, and I was like, Jesus Christ. And they were just taking the antlers, and that was so sad because why not use the rest of it? There's, I guess they were, the body was gone. Then the bodies started showing up, okay? Picture this. It is August. Cape Cod, it's sweltering. It's humid. The air is thick. It's like my poor husband, who had never really been to the East Coast, when we go to visit my family, he grew up in Colorado, super arid here. He got off the plane in Boston, and he was like, I feel like I'm inhaling water. Like, I feel like I'm drowning. And I'm like, oh no. Yeah, that is what it kind of feels like. But my body is so used to it. Even now, even though I've been gone for 11 years, when I get back there, I'm like, oh, like I don't feel like a raisin. Anyways, so it's humid. It's hot as shit. It's gross out. Taking these goddamn dogs, okay? Someone has left this bloated deer carcass in the middle of a field where we are walking. I have no leashes, and there are all of these dogs. They race over. they start eating this rotting carcass. And I'm like, no, I'm yelling at them. I'm trying to grab collars and I'm like, okay, we're a mile into the woods, so I can't just take one collar, drag them back to the car one by one. I mean, I guess I could have, but I was like, I start panicking. My phone's not working. Like, I don't have service, I think. I can't, and Judy's not gonna. Who's gonna help me? What do I call my mom? I call Judy. She's not gonna answer. Okay. So I always ran with this big buck knife that I had just in case, there was a murderer or whatever. So I take my buck knife and I take a deep breath and I start just carving up. So it's not like, don't get me wrong, it is not fully meated up. It's like rotting, right? So the legs don't have the full meat. There's like an opening into the guts. Sorry if I hope you're not eating, but if you're like me, this stuff doesn't bother you. If it does bother you, hey, I'm sorry. You can fast forward about a minute and it'll probably be done. Anyways, I just start hacking chunks off of the deer, like cut the leg off, snap it. And then I start putting it up in the crevices of trees because I truly, what would you have done in this situation? Call the police. I didn't know what to do. That was my quick thinking, is like, I gotta just get the carcass away from them and then whatever. Meanwhile, one of the dogs has already eaten so much meat that it's throwing up the meat and then eating it again. And I'm like, the dogs are gonna die. Like, the dogs are gonna die. It's gonna be my fault. Like, what was I thinking? Oh my God. So I end up getting almost all of it up into, different trees, right? There's like the rib cage and spine is dangling, just barely getting it up there, right? What's left is the guts, okay? The intestines, the stomach. And I'm like, I've already touched everything with my bare hands, but like that to me was a bridge too far. So I get 2 sticks and one's got a crook, like a slingshot, kind of thing. So I get the stomach up with that. And I get another stick that kind of is the same thing. So it's like, whoosh, I've got them. And it's dangling. And I go to hang it up on a branch. And all the contents of the stomach into that intestine, just not on my head, all over the ground, splashback, all up my legs. So I did that. And it did happen. And I was like, okay. And I think that might have maybe been really upsetting to other people, but I was like, I gotta just get through this. Also, I can't explain it, but stuff like that just does not, but it still doesn't bother me. I still work with a lot of dead animal stuff because I don't collect roadkill, but I do make a lot of artwork with bones, and I have had to clean quite a few carcasses. I don't know, it just doesn't bother me. So anyways, I was able to just kind of muscle my way through that. And meanwhile, the dogs are thrown up and covered in blood. And I'm like, okay. Now everything's up in the trees. They have nothing else to eat. We go home. We go back to the doggy daycare. There's maybe 45 minutes until everyone starts getting picked up. I'm like, I think Judy did help me. We're using both bathtubs in her house, furiously cleaning these dogs. And then I have to tell all of the owners that their dogs ate carcass meat. Sorry. Hope they don't get sick. Everyone ended up being fine and surviving. I think a couple of the dogs got diarrhea, but you know what? A small price to pay for eating rotting flesh. And I was really traumatized, not by cutting up this dead body, but like, that was terrifying to not have any way to get them back, to not have help. And I really feel like I started kind of pulling back from the job at that point and being like, this is ludicrous. Like, it is. I also have to mention that I was drinking, not on the job, but every night, drinking to excess. So I'm showing up to work like not really in my right mind and deeply hungover. And I'm just slamming Red Bull and chain smoking cigarettes. And I was prescribed Adderall at that point, and I loved it. I really have never felt so normal and so focused in my goddamn life. I've been unmedicated ADHD for almost my entire adult life. But when I first started taking it, it was great. And then I started abusing it because, hey, if a little's good, more is better. And it was great. So, and then Judy, who was also like super into pills, super into Sky Vodka, she would be like, hey, I have so much Adderall. Like, I just get prescribed tons of it. And I was like, okay. And she was like, I don't know, it came up in conversation that I was prescribed sedatives for my anxiety. So she's like, can we trade? And I was like, dude, yeah. I don't need sedatives. I have booze. Let's do it. So anyways, I'm strung out. Essentially. I hate to say it, but I was strung out on Adderall and brutally hungover to this. And I feel like when you're hungover like that, where you're still kind of like under the influence and then you're on the Adderall, you're in this liminal space of you're just like, whatever, like I can handle it. I don't know. It felt oddly euphoric. So there's so much. Judy started really taking a turn for the worse, where she was just, if she was around, she was hammered. Some of the dogs would stay overnight, and I'd come in the morning, and I'd have to come early because I would not trust her to be up and ready for when some clients came at 6. So I started coming at 5:30, making sure the house was clean, like just making sure there wasn't like bottles ever. I was covering up for like an alcoholic parent, but she wasn't my parent. Anyways, constantly covering for her. So I'm coming in every day at 6, or 5:30, cleaning up. I'd find her in the hot tub, like almost passed out drunk at 5:30 a.m. And I'd be like, all right, let's get you out. No clothes, always naked. Let's get you in your robe. Let's put you to bed for a little bit. She'd be like, now I have to file my client's tax returns. I got to catch up on work. And I'd be like, whatever. You got to get out of the hot tub because people are going to see you when they start coming, whatever. Helping her fucking big drunk ass out of the hot tub, getting her in her robe, settling her away from where the clients would come. And the other end of the house, okay? And then she started leaving pill bottles out on the counter, which dogs can get up on the counter. Pills everywhere. I'd have to be like taking Adderall and putting them back in their thing, securing the lid. Percocet back in their thing, securing the lid. Valium, same thing. I'm like, okay. So I'm doing that. I'm like frantically trying to clean up the house. Then the dogs start getting there, and half the people are like, I didn't have time to feed my dog. Can you feed them? So then I got to put them in another room. I got to feed them. Everyone goes down in the basement of the house. That's like, it was kind of a finished basement. We had like a TV down there and a couch, and then a doggy door to go outside in her fenced-in backyard. And I don't know why we didn't just stay, but it was very important to Judy for me to take the dogs out for a walk for enrichment. And so anyways, it was just like a mess. And then I started becoming more unhinged because I feel like when you're with someone in any capacity who just normalizes being hammered all the time, doing pills all the time, being naked all the time, and not in a weird, there was no like, she didn't come on to me, she didn't, whatever. But then I started just like tanning in the backyard, in her backyard, butt naked. And then I look up on the porch and she'd come out on the porch to like tell me something. She's butt naked, swigging vodka, middle of the day. She'd be like, can you go out and get me 2 coffees? Like, yep. So I put on my clothes. I'd leave. She'd be like, I'll watch the dogs. She didn't. I'd go over to Cumberland Farms. Hey, shout out Cumberland Farms. Miss you. They don't have those in Colorado. And I have to get her 2 huge French vanilla coffees, like whatever that ultra size is. She be getting 2 of those. And then I'd always have to get her 2 whoopie pies. Okay. So anyways, Jesus Christ. I get her that. I get myself Red Bull, which I can't even smell that now. Holy shit. Ew. Anyways, couple of Red Bulls, pack cigarettes. Hey, I've got to keep my head in the game. I knew I had to truly lock in for a day of just like kind of madness. So I guess the other things that really stood out to me at the doggy daycare experience were more Judy based and not the dogs. So the dogs were great. The thing about Judy was, well, she was nuts, but also she was an alcoholic, and also she was on drugs, and also she had this weird thing with food where she would be drinking Slim Fast. I'm like, wow, that's a really old can. Like, let me look at the expiration date. This is 1999. Okay, I'm working there in 2008, 2009, 2010. She's drinking Slim Fast from 1999. She'd be like, oh my God, I don't feel good. I'd be like, okay, yep, yeah, I bet you don't. And then she would also just like leave pizza on the counter. She left shrimp. She got like pizza with shrimp on it, which, first of all, what? Second of all, third of all, yuck. And she would leave that out on the counter for 2 days. And then she'd eat it. And then she'd be like, I'm sick. I can't help you today. And I was like, you're never helping me, but yeah, I get it. And then the other thing with her was, and I don't know how like eating the expired food all the time wasn't making her shit herself senseless, but for some reason she was always constipated. And so she was like, I have to go do my enema. And I'd be like, okay, I don't really actually, at that point I didn't really know what that was, but I was like, okay. And then she told me that she was sticking tubing up her ass and funneling water into it and then like shitting it out. And I was like, okay, like, all right, Judy, that does track for you. Very on brand for you, Judy. Great. The thing that affected me was there was 2 showers in the house. Okay, but only one had the retractable, removable. What is it? The mobile shower head, whatever it's called. And you need that to wash a dog. You ever try and just give a dog a bath and I don't know, you have a cup or a bucket and it doesn't work. So Judy's shower in her room had the detachable, I think it was the word, detachable shower head. And I'd have to go in there, and every time I go in there to give a dog a bath, which was frequently, we had this bright powder white doodle that rolled in poop and dead things any chance it got. I had to bathe him every single time he came. Love him, but Jesus Christ, was that a nightmare. So I'd have to go into Judy's tub. Her enema stuff was in there. She gives herself an enema every day. So I'm having to spray down this woman's shit funnel. Okay, gently remove the tubing that was in her anus. Place it to the side, rinse out the tub, wash it out. Wash this dog who's covered in crap and dead stuff, okay? Never was there a glove in sight. Never was there a mask. Truly, I was living on the edge. I was maybe over the edge and I had like a finger. So anyways, that was a lot. That job, and also, like I said, I would go 3, 4, sometimes 5 weeks without getting paid. Okay. Also, she put me in charge of the bank account, but not really. So I had access to seeing what was in it. I had access to writing checks. I don't really remember, but she would be like, write yourself a check and go cash it. And I'd go, and they'd be like, there's no money. And I'd be like, Judy, I would see all the checks. The clients would physically hand us checks. Again, this was a different time. This is before AutoPay. This is before Square. This was before all of that stuff. People, it was not that common. It was not uncommon for people to pay either in cash or in checks. So I would see every single morning at the end of the week, people would pay like usually on a weekly basis. They would hand me the checks or hand me the cash, and I would go to the bank. So I would know what was deposited, have the receipt of what was deposited, and then Judy would say, go write yourself a check and cash it for your hours this week. And I would go, and there would be no money in the bank. And I would come back and I would say, there's no money in the bank, Judy. And she'd be like, what the, are you questioning me? What are you trying to say? And I'd be like, I'm just trying to say that there were $0 in that account. And she would turn it around on me being, problematic, whatever. Again, I didn't know how to navigate this. I would just be like, yep, okay. And eventually I would kind of get paid. So anyways, after like 2 years of this, I was like, hey, I actually am going insane. And truly the ending of this job was that Judy had then taken in a roommate who was a woman who was an alcoholic that she, I feel like, found at a bus depot. And she felt bad for her. And I do not remember this woman's name, nor would I like dox her. She had her own issues, but she wasn't that problematic. So anyway, she starts living with Judy. I'm kind of having to navigate the dynamics of them. Judy's always coming to me like, oh, you won't believe what she did. She threw up in her purse today. And I was like, okay. She was like, I swear she's drinking again. I told her she wasn't allowed to drink. She had to be sober. And I was like, okay, weird coming from you, but sure. Leave me out of it, okay? So Judy one day went snooping through this woman, this recovering alcoholic, went snooping through her room, found all these bottles under her bed. I was out getting Judy her 2 extra max coffees and her whoopie pies. I come back, these 2 women, okay, women in their 50s, are in the front yard. Both of them have a t-shirt and underpants on. No idea why. Okay? And they're like fist fighting. I call the police because I'm like, I don't really, and what am I supposed to do with this? So they come, they talk to both of them. Judy, of course, took like 5 Valium before they came. She was basically incoherent. The other lady, I don't really know what she said, but Judy was like, can't do all this. And I was like, yeah, I can't believe it's crazy, Judy. Why would the police come when you're out in the front lawn fist fighting with another woman in your undies? That is wild. So that was kind of it. I handed the business over to a very nice woman, and I warned her, and she did come like shadow me for a few weeks. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know what happened to Judy. I don't know what happened to well, no, but I did trust Mary. I was like, if you can keep Judy out of this, Mary, you're going to do fine. And I know the dogs are safe, but you have to be in charge. So I think everything worked out. But that was nuts, right, guys? Like, that was crazy. Yeah. So at the same time I was like transitioning out, I was transitioning into a different job. Honestly, I'd been there for probably a year. I was doing both on and off, but the other job was like, so I was working at a farm right down the road from my house, and they had goats and sheep, chickens, ducks, alpaca, and miniature donkeys. And I think that's all the animals. So anyways, of course I was drawn to that job, and I was the animal keeper. So I was just doing rounds in the morning and then in the evening. And then they needed help. They had like and they still do have a cafe. It's like a big deal now. The farm has expanded more, and they have like a chef. I'm pretty sure it's a girl I went to school with. So shout out to her. She runs that. It's not even a cafe. I think it's like a kind of almost like a high-end restaurant. It's pretty cool. So anyways, check out Coonamessett Farm if you're ever in Falmouth or you're on the Cape. Make the trip. You can go see all the animals. You can pick your own flowers. They've got produce that you can pick. And they've got this great restaurant. And then best night of the week during the summer is, of course, Jamaican night. So a lot of their farm workers, I'm not sure if it's still true, but a lot of their workers are from Jamaica. Some of the kindest people I think I've ever worked with. So genuine. So, I don't know. They were just great. So welcoming. I mean, truly, like, you hear the business and be like, we're the good family here. But they really were. And then they were a family. There was like a husband and wife, and I think some of his brothers. But yeah, they just made me feel so welcome. I really loved them and the time I spent there. My boss was really mean to me. And I just like don't have the constitution to be yelled at. Like, if I was in the military, I feel like I would actually melt into a puddle and just evaporate. I just can't take it. So, I'm not saying that he wasn't an issue, but I also just know that I have a very low tolerance for being shamed and like being yelled at, and that was just kind of how he worked. So didn't love that. But anyways, so I started working there more. I said goodbye to the doggy daycare, started working at the farm more, and I did. I learned a good bit. I got to see a baby donkey be born. His name was Jack, and he was so cute. They were miniature donkeys, so they're not super small, but a donkey is like the size of a horse. So if you think of like pony size, which are ponies, there's a range, right? You think of the really small ones, which are like such a little, they're like little curiosities, like they should be in a, like an oddities show. Not like that. I'm trying to think. I don't know. Just in your head, picture a smaller horse. Okay? Do that for me. Thank you. Because I'm having trouble describing it. So that was really fun. I got to see him come out. He was so cute. I loved him. He was my little buddy. There's also a goat named Nigel, who's very much like a dog. He would kind of come to you when you called him. He was great. That really like gave me a love for goats, which then when I worked at another job that I'm going to talk about, years later here in Colorado, that turned me off from ever wanting to own goats. Let me tell you. They just can be so destructive, and they're like so wily. They're so, like, they just live to create chaos. Anyways, so I'm working at this farm, and there's only a few stories. Like, there was, there was nothing crazy. It wasn't mismanaged. No one was actually insane here. But I had been working there for a while, and one day I'm driving to work, and I see this cat on the side of the road, and I'm like, oh my God, it looks dead, but like, what if it's not? What if I can help it? I turn my car around, I get out. It's in front of someone's house. And I'm like, oh God, should I like go tell them, or what do I do? So I'm staring at this cat, making sure it's dead. It's dead. This guy comes out of his house. He's like, hey, did you hit that? I'm like, no, I didn't. I didn't. I'm just checking. I wanted to make sure it wasn't still alive. He goes, oh. He goes, well, it's early in the morning. He goes, the kids are about to come down to the bus stop. If they see that cat, they're going to be really upset. It's kind of like the neighborhood cat. Everyone loves it. And I go, okay. He's like, can you take it? First of all, why did I say yes? Because I was raised to truly be a people pleaser. But what an insane who would ask that? So I go, yep, I can. Okay, so I run back to work and get a shovel and get like a contractor bag. I come back. It's only 2 minutes down the road. I come back. I scoop the cat up. I put it, in the bag, whatever. Bring it to work. I throw it in the compost. That's what we do with the dead chickens. That's what we do with anything that dies, goes in the compost. I don't think anything of it. I'm like, okay, I did this thing. Whatever. I put it out of my mind. I'm having lunch later. My boss comes tearing into the cafe. Hey, what's up with that dead cat in the compost? And I'm like, I don't say anything. I'm just stiff as a board. He's like, someone put a dead cat in the compost. Who did it? And I'm like, it was me. I'm sorry. I like tell the story. He's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, that's a fair question in a way. But also I was like, well, we just like, the guy asked me to, and like, I know we put the dead chick. He goes, that's someone's pet. They're going to be looking for it. We can't just be throwing random dead animals in the compost. And I'm like, yep. Okay. Yep. Totally. He's like, go put it back where you found it. And I'm like, yep, absolutely. So I get the contractor bag. I put it on my front seat. I just lift the cat by the tail this time, put it on my front seat. I drive back. I drive back to this man's house. I don't even slow all the way down. I lean over. I'm going 1 mile an hour. I lean over, open my door, and just throw the cat back out. And then I drive back to work. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? What? Oh my God. So I always do wonder, like, what did that man think when he came out and he saw that cat? Like, did he think that I'd put it in a pet cemetery and it'd come back? Did he think, he saw me take it away. Okay, anyway, so don't know, wish him well. Hope he's recovered. I don't know if I have. That was truly just like, God damn. Another time, we had 2 dumpsters, okay? We had 2 dumpsters for the trash. I'm just kind of, I don't think anything of it. I'm like, one day I throw trash in one day I throw trash in the other. I don't know. I didn't ask any questions, all right? Maybe that's my mistake. I find out, no one had told me, I don't know why, that one of the dumpsters we actually weren't supposed to have, and there was not supposed to be anything in it. And the people, like whatever, the trash service that was going to come and get it, was going to come get it soon. And my boss, his eyes about popped out of his head when he found out that I had been throwing trash in there for 6 months. Okay, again, it's summer. It's sweltering. It's wet out. It's just, you're wet all the time. Everything's wet. He's like, you have to go and get in the dumpster and clean it out, you dumb fuck. And I was like, yep, that makes sense to me. So I have boots, don't even come up to my knee. I have, clothes with paint on them that I have for like junk projects. And I have maybe like a mask, again, like before the pandemic, right? Like, who had masks around? I don't know. People who are sanding things. I don't know. And I think I had like rubber kitchen gloves. I had to get my brother's truck. I had to get up on the tailgate of it and jump in with a shovel. And I had to shovel the trash myself out of this, you know, you like the side slot or whatever, shoveling the trash out. I'm lifting bags that are breaking. There's maggots everywhere. And I mean that. They're in my boots. They're in my hair. They're everywhere. Again, not something that really bothers me, but that was worse than the carcass. So for maybe 4.5 hours, I clean this thing out, and then I have to put all that trash, I have to shovel it because it's all out of the bags into the new trash receptacle or whatever. Not new, you know what I mean, the one I have supposed to have been using. And yeah, I got ripped a new one, and no one had any sympathy for me. So that was a tough day. I did take probably a 2.5 hour long shower when I got home. Listen, the big positive of this story is that I got to raise a duckling. And so, okay, so people used to, you know, you take the eggs home, right? We have ducks, we have chickens. You come to the farm, you can pick your own eggs. I guess a family let their daughter hatch one. I don't know if they had an incubator or what, but anyways, this duck hatched. They didn't think it would. So they bring it back to the farm and go, we don't want it. So my boss goes, all right, well, just, you know, set up a little, you know, Rubbermaid bin in the greenhouse. We'll keep it warm and it'll just live in there. And I'm like, okay, but he's like alone and like, I'm sad. So my boss really did think that it would just die. I used to go check on him every day and spend time with him. And I was like, this poor thing, like, Jesus Christ. And then one day my boss is like, I'm sick of this. Throw him in with the big ducks and either he lives or he dies. And I go, okay. So I take him over. He's got his feathers. So he's maybe 7 or 8 weeks old. Can't be in with the adult ducks. Like, I put him in. They start attacking him. He's like running up my leg. I grab him and it's close to my lunch break. So I just put him in my sports bra and I get in my car and I go home. And my brother's there, my youngest brother. And he was there. I brought home a blue jay one time too that I found in the woods. All of his parents were like massacred and he was alive. Again, put him in my sports bra, ran home. I think the same brother was home and I was like, hey, listen, we have a bird now and you got to watch him until I'm done with work. And he was just like, yep, no problem. Shout out Taylor. I believe he did that twice for me. So I hand him this duck. I'm like, just put a towel down. You got to chill with him, you know, get him some water, whatever. He was like, yep, no problem. So I come home from work and I didn't tell my boss because I feel like he would have been like, no, bring him back and stomp on him in front of me. I would have been like, okay. So take him home. And I'm like, from raising that blue jay, I kind of learned what to do with young birds, but he had his feathers. So this is way easier. Maybe I'll tell the blue jay story later, but anyways, we get this duck. I name him Spanky. Okay, he becomes my best friend. And when I tell you, if anyone's had experience with raising a duck, not just having ducks like you have chickens, you also form a bond. But one that like imprints on you and follows you around, it's the cutest thing in the world. It's so cute. It's like having a dog, except for it like liquid shits everywhere, which is definitely a caveat. Okay, so bring him home and have him in like a little bin next to my bed and you know, get him food, duck food. And yeah, he's just like, he's our little guy. And my youngest brother and I were living at home at the time, so we spent so much time with that duck. We would fill up the bathtub at night and me, my brother, myself, and my mom would be just sitting on the bathroom floor watching this little duck just like tear around and rip up lettuce and put it in the water and like watch him dunk his head. And it was just really, it was so freaking cute. And, you know, I had to bring him to work with me because I couldn't leave him home all day. So I would just like, this poor car, my poor Saturn wagon, that car really went through it. And so I would like just fill the foot wells in my back seat with hay, and I would set down like food and water for him, would go to work, windows down, parked in the shade, and I'd be able to go check on him. And then when he was bigger, I'd kind of let him come with me. When he was bigger, I would bring him downtown. He'd come walk with me. I'd bring him to go get coffee, to go get gas. And shout out Johnny's Tune and Lube, which I don't even know if that's still open, but that was right near my house, and that's where I used to go to get my gas and get my oil changed and just like car maintenance and stuff. And that the owner, Johnny, started coming out, and he would see the duck and he was like, wow. And I was like, yeah, I know. So he used to come and pump my gas. Like, it was a self-serve pump, but he was like, no, I insist. Like, I want to see your duck. I want whatever. And yeah, like he just was my little guy. We used to go through the drive-thru at Dunkin' Donuts, and I'd get my coffee, and then I'd get him a big cup of ice and or like iced water. Oh man, he would live it up. He'd sit like right on my the console right there. Again, just liquid shitting, diarrhea shitting in my back seat, and I was like, whatever. It'll buff out. I'll just change the hay later. And so, and yeah, I used to go to the bar with like my back seat full of hay? Yeah, I did. Did I give people home ride home sometimes? Yeah, I did. And I definitely like didn't get the vibe that people really liked that, but that was part of my life. What was I gonna do? Clean out my car, make it nice, and then have my duck diarrhea squirting in it the next day? No. So I didn't. And so anyways, had him for probably 6 months, maybe 9 months. And then my mom kind of gaslit me into feeling like I wasn't giving him the best life. And maybe she was right, but I felt like she was wrong, and I still do. And yeah, she was just like, you have to like put him back on the farm. Like, this is no life for a duck. And I'm like, he's living the dream. He has unlimited lettuce and frozen peas. Okay, he's getting crisp iced water from Dunkin' Donuts. He's going on car rides. He's seeing the world, Patricia. So, anyways, I did have to bring him back to the farm. So the farm, all the birds, right, all the chickens, ducks, whatever, I think they had some geese, they were all free range. So he got up there mixing it up. He wasn't trapped in a cage, which I was very grateful for, or else I really might have fought harder to keep him. But you live in your parents' house, you gotta follow your parents' rules very loosely in my case. But I digress. So anyways, it was so sad. He every day I'd put him up in I'd put him in the pen, which is open, right, so they can leave him with food, water. I'd run and I'd like go hide in the cafe, and I'd hear him quack, 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 flying down the hill to go down to my car, and he'd be hiding underneath my car, and I'd be sobbing, and I would just pick him up, and I'd bring him up the hill, and I'd tell him he was a good boy, and whatever. This went on for probably a week before he started kind of just staying up on the hill. And then, I'd do my rounds later, and he'd come and follow me, and it was really nice. And then he'd kind of go off and do his thing, and he really did settle in, and he like fell in with one, there's like these not warring gangs, although I wish I could say that, but I don't want to exaggerate. There was these two kind of flocks of ducks that kind of did their own thing, and one would just go over to the pond, in the neighboring sort of land mass. And so anyways, he had a pond and he had friends, and I was like, all right, but God, did I miss him? I still miss him. My little Spanky. He was so funny. Sometimes my mom and my youngest brother would come and visit me, and they'd like bring him lettuce and stuff. And he would recognize their voices. The minute he heard them, he'd come flying. Same with me. And that was really cute and special. I didn't know birds could be chill like that, because when I raised, real quick, when I was running the doggy daycare, we were out on a run one day. I'm starting seeing all these blue jay feathers everywhere. And I'm like, oh geez, like shit, what happened? Like, whatever. I'm looking around and I see one of the dogs goes over and sniffing at something. And I'm like, oh my God, no, like don't eat the dead bird. I go over, it's this little blue jay, and he just started getting those little sprouts of feathers. So he's not totally naked, which I've tried to raise so many totally naked birds who would fall out of the barn at the farm, and they never made it. No matter what I did, even if I was up every hour with them, they never made it. But once they start getting their little feathers, it's, in my experience, they're much easier to take care of, and they have a way greater odds of living. So learn that the hard way about 10 times. Okay, I don't want to talk about it. But this little blue jay, so I grab him. His parents are massacred, clearly. Very grateful that dog didn't eat him. So anyways, I put him in my storage bra. I run back to the car. All the dogs are running with me. We go to the pet store because I'm like, I don't know the first thing about taking care of a juvenile bird. So the guy tells me, he's like, you got to mash up egg yolks, cooked egg yolks, and wet dog food. I'm like, okay. So stock up on that. And I'm feeding him every 2 hours. You have to wake up all night. It's all through the day. I'm like having my brother do it when I'm not there, having my mom do it when I'm not there. And like, I think I might have brought him to work. He might have been in my car at some point. I don't know. Like, I don't know how we got through that, but we did. And I named him Larry Bird. Now, let me tell you something about Larry Bird. When he wasn't like a duck, obviously. He's not walking around following me, which sucked. I really did enjoy that about Spanky, but he would, when he got big enough to fly, which honestly does not take that long, he was flying around the house liquid shitting. And my mom loved that, let me tell you. So yeah, he just like couldn't give a shit about me. Like he really just did not, there was no imprinting. I don't know. I know it's not specifically a duck thing, but I think it's like the most common in ducks. And so, yeah, having this blue jay first, like Spanky was such a nice thing after that. Like what a difference. So Larry Bird, yeah, I was just like, all right, dog, we got to get you outside. I was like trying to get him to dig, to like get worms, and he wasn't really getting it. My mom was just like, get him out of my house. And I was like, okay, totally. So I did just kind of put him in a bush and put some worms on the ground for him. And I was like, good luck, sailor. You can do this. And I will tell you, so that winter, this was in maybe spring, that winter, we would just see blue jays after that. Like I was hoping it was him, and that might be wishful thinking, but I feel like that winter, there were a couple blue jays, and then I would see bird feet come up in the snow, like these tiny little bird feet up on our porch, coming up to the slider door. And I was like, tell me that's my Larry. I know it is. So I tell myself that. And to this day, there's like a family of blue jays that live right outside my mom's back door. Like they've just been there since. And so isn't that cute? Okay. So I think that kind of wraps up the farm stories. Now, the next chapter of my life is an important one. And I really feel like I had this low point after I left the farm because I was just like, I'm burnt out. I was working all the time. Like I just had it. I was unemployed for a little bit, heavy drinking, really like focused on the drinking. Felt like I really perfected that. And then I was like, I actually hate this. And I got to do something or I'm just going to die. Like I'm just going to drink myself to death. Like, what am I doing? Hanging out with just people who are not super cool and chill. And I was just like, I got to make a change. So I decided I was going to go back to college. I had done a little bit at the community college on Cape Cod, and I just did like liberal arts, and I had a great time. And then I moved up to New York to be with shit pants, and that obviously didn't work out. But yeah, I like didn't continue the schooling that I had started. So anyways, I was like, all right, I love animals. I guess I'm going to be an animal nurse because Lord knows I can't be a vet. I'm not about to do 8 years of school. I didn't know if I could do it. I was like very scared going back to school. I really was. I was just like, oh God, like, I don't really know if I have this in me, but let's try. And at the same time, I was like, I need an actual job. I like need structure. I truly need someone to tell me what to do. Please, God, help me. Tell me what to do, please. So my mom was like, hey, you know, of course she has like all these newspaper connections. She's like, here's the job listings. Like, so-and-so's kid worked at this summer job. Why don't you try it? And I was like, a laboratory. When I tell you, I was sweating bullets. Like I was scared to death to have like it felt like a really like a big kid job. I'm 24, but I'm mentally 15. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, oh. So I really gathered my strength and I went in and I interviewed and they were like, yeah, whatever. We don't care who works here. So, come on. Just show up and do your best. And I was like, great, I can do that. So anyways, this job, Shout out to the Crab Lab, okay? Associates of Cape Cod in Falmouth. My favorite job I've ever had, okay? And I cannot speak for everyone that I work with. I know not everyone had this like great experience. Dude, I had the 4 best summers, I think, of my entire life in like a fun, partying, young person way. Like, now that I have my daughter and my husband, I'm so fulfilled and at peace, and like my life is full of love, and that is beautiful. This is different. This is like I was truly the definition of feral. I mean, you could actually define me as having rabies, I think, at this point, because we were, those 4 summers, I was working so hard, and I was also partying so hard, and I was not sleeping at all, and I was barely eating. But was I having the time of my life? Yeah, I was. And so this job at Associates of Cape Cod, that's the name, right? Now I'm like, that doesn't sound right. It is. Because we just always called it the Crab Lab. Because you're there working with horseshoe crabs. And it's such a bizarre job. And horseshoe crabs are so weird, but they're incredibly cool. I have so much respect for them now. And of course, they're like the oldest living being on the planet. Like, they're cool as shit, and their blood is super cool, and it's blue, and it's super reactive to any type of contamination, but specifically endotoxins. So you take the blood in this laboratory setting, and there's all these different stages, and you essentially get those reactive cells isolated, freeze dry them, and then you send them off to like medical testing companies. So people who make stuff that gets implanted in your body, like pacemakers. The vaccine companies use it. So they're testing the purity of their devices, of their vaccines, to make sure that they're not contaminated. So I wasn't doing any of the like super clean room stuff, thank God, because the one clean room I had to go into sometimes was enough to just really send me into a tailspin. It was so, I hated it. I felt so claustrophobic. You're in this room with all these loud fans, and you're geared up. You're not in a full hazmat suit. There are other places in the building where that was like the protocol. Never had to go there, thank God. But you were like covered, and to get in and out of the room is a process. So like, what if I have diarrhea though? What if I have urgent blistering diarrhea? Okay, there's no way to get out of there fast enough. And I couldn't stop thinking about that. Hey, IBS girlies, I think that everyone here gets it, okay? So I hated that clean room, but it was fun to send stuff through the chute. So, your human bodies walk through these, like this double door system. So you're in there and you put on all your shit, and then you go into the clean room. But if you have to send the blood or trays or whatever, pens, whatever, you gotta spray it down, you gotta put it in one side, and then you lock it, and then the person in the clean room on the other side unloads it. So we would send each other notes, and we definitely weren't supposed to. And yeah, it was great. We were just like inhaling alcohol, like vapors all day, and I feel like that really did something to me in a really fun way. And but yeah, the basis of our job was we would have like fishermen essentially bring us just ass loads of horseshoe crabs, right? And they're alive, and they're creepy little spider legs, right? They're like all in these buckets, right? Trash cans full of these prehistoric crab spiders. And then you pull them out, and you do not pull them by their tail, which is called a telson, because it'll snap off. So don't do that. So you got to pick them up like you would a dog. And then you get them, you fold them up, and their little butthole membrane sticks out when you fold them up like that. You stick them in this rack, and then sorry, PETA. Also, sorry to me, sorry to anyone who cares about animals at all, because this is rough. Then you take this giant gauge needle, you shove it up that membrane, you pierce it, and all this blue blood starts flying into these bottles, and you got to catch it. And then eventually it kind of shuts itself off, the blood, and the horseshoe crabs are alive. I feel like you kind of throw them back into these trash cans, and you hope for the best, but they do say that I think 90% of them live, which is like not perfect, certainly. And do I feel bad about it? Yeah, big time. At the time, I was just kind of trying to get through the day. I wasn't thinking about it too much. I didn't like to think about it. I intentionally didn't think about it, but reflecting back, I'm like, dude, that sucks. Like, I know they're not cuddly, but that sucks. So anyways, you bleed them, you send their blood into the clean room, you know, wash up all the shit. There's another room. I forget what it was called, wrapping. Okay, it's called wrapping. You're wrapping all of the clean glassware in tin foil so no shit gets in the top of it, and then you're shoving them in these big ovens. Like, picture an oven that's the size of your room, my room. Like, it's huge, and you got these huge, it's a big oven, and sometimes stuff would catch on fire in there. It wasn't that fun. So I don't know, it was nuts. We had to, you know, you're like, oh my god. And everyone at this point in our lives, so everyone who worked there, you had to be 18, but I was one of the older people. I was 24. I think there was a few people who were like maybe 26, 28. And then most of the people who worked there were, to me, kids 18, 19, 20. There were maybe 4 or 5 people who were 21. And then over the 4 summers we were together, everyone turned 21. But yeah, it was just like, so just picture, like, you're in this time of life where you're just like desperately trying to figure out what the hell you're doing. And like, everyone's partying, everyone's young, everyone's just like all over the place with everything. And then we have to come to this like serious job, and it's not a corporate job, thank God. However, like, you have to buckle down and like get stuff done. And we were constantly being like inspected by these Japanese investors that like own the company. That was stressful. I mean, talk about serious. I mean, we'd be like holding our breaths. I would be, at least. I know a lot of the kids that I work with couldn't give a shit. Oh man, but I, of course, trying to be, you know, the people pleasing, like, yes sir, yes ma'am, I'll get it done. I definitely took it seriously, but I also had so much fun. So yeah, you're like suited up in scrubs, and you have to like tuck them in, which, hey, is never cute. You have to have these big old hairnets on called bouffants. You gotta have your safety googs on. You cannot wear any makeup because you can have mascara crumbles falling into your potion. Hello. And you can't have foundation, nothing. You can't. I got sent home once because you can't have poison ivy, because like if you happen to ooze into the product, that'd be bad. So no makeup. You got your hair in this goofy ass bouffant. You've got your big old safety goggles on. You've got these ugly ass scrubs that are tucked in and they're like cinched at the wrist and, you know, your ankles. And then you have shoe covers on, and like, God, you just really feel ugly in that getup. But then it's like, yeah, but who cares, you know, a little bit. And so yeah, we just had a blast. We were always getting in trouble. Our manager, she was an asshole. Hey, she was an asshole. And that's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna reveal her name, but we had a great big boss. His name was Brett Hoffmeister. He was so goddamn funny, and I feel like he wasn't even trying to be half the time. He had crazy stories, and he just really was. He was a good boss. He cared about us. He made everyone feel seen. And he, after my first summer, he was like, hey, I think you should be one of the leads. So that's a manager. And there were a couple. I think there was a lead for each room that we had to work in. And so he was like, I want you to be a lead. And I said, oh, no. No, thank you. But like, no, I just want to like come to work and do my job. And I don't really want any extra responsibilities. And he was like, well, no, you can't really say no, because I think that you don't believe in yourself, and I really want you to. And he was like, so you're going to do this, and I know that you're going to do it well. And I was just like, okay, thank you. Do you want to adopt me? Would you like to be my father, Brett? Because I really needed that. So I did become a lead, and man, I feel like it was such a good experience for me. And I'm sure some of the people who worked under me were like, didn't love it, because I was very much like, if you are not going to do your job, you can just go home and I will do your job. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, when you're a lead, when you're a manager there, it doesn't mean that you like get to sit at a desk or something. Like, you're doing everything everyone else is doing, but you're also like, we got to stay on task. You have to keep your eye on the clock. You have to make sure things are running smoothly. You have to kind of make sure no one's fucking up. Because, hey, when you're a manager, if they fuck up, you fuck up. And again, like, it wasn't that deep. Like, it was kind of, but it also was a summer job. But I did take it seriously. But also, we had so much fun. Like, I looked forward to work every day. I really did. Like, of course, there's some days where like you're so hungover that you're just like, I don't actually think that I'm going to survive the drive to work. But then you do it and you're like, all right, I'm here. Oh, like, so we had this CD player, like it's just a boombox. And so we would have to make CDs to bring in, sanitize, and then that was all we could listen to. So people would just make these like these wild CDs full of like music you had never heard of. And that was fun. Also, there was one summer where, shout out to Alex, he came from Oklahoma, I want to say. Something like that. Anyways, doesn't matter. He was here staying with family. He was so funny, truly so funny. And he brought the Space Jam soundtrack. And we all flipped our fucking shit. Like that was all we listened to for like 3 weeks, much to the dismay of most of the people who worked there. But there was about 4 or 5 of us who really loved that. And then he made us another CD where it was just that first track. It was just that, come on and slam, and welcome to the jam. Okay, so imagine 12 tracks of just that song. And I would be like, I am the lead, and this is what we're listening to today. And eventually we did get that CD taken away. And that was a sad day. But to this day, if I hear that song, I feel like this joy like rises in me. And I love that song to this day. So thank you for that, Alex. Yeah, we had a good time. We partied so hard at night, and then we buckled down and got stuff done during the day. And I really don't have any crazy stories. I feel like the crazy part of this job is that, hey, we were shoving giant needles and essentially dinosaurs. Okay, we did that. So wow. What a time. Loved it. I still feel like I stay in contact with about half the people I worked with, and some of them are really dear friends. And like, I truly met so many incredibly funny, smart people. And I definitely am better off for having had that job, 1,000%. So if you know a college age student who is, living on the Cape and needs a summer job, hit up Associates at Cape Cod, babe. And yeah, I think that it's just a great place. And okay, so now flip to the school semester. So I went to school for animal nursing. It's called veterinary technology because nursing is actually trademarked by human medicine, but I'm just going to call it animal nursing. Okay. 4-year program, super intense. Okay. Super intense. And I was so proud of myself that I did it and I got my degree. Did I figure out by the end of it, hey, actually, I don't want to do this? Yeah, I did. Okay. Leave me alone about it. I think that's a very common thing these days. And I think part of that was like, I ended up working in a practice run by an egomaniac who was super mean. And so I really struggled. Again, I don't really like people yelling at me, and I don't thrive. I do thrive under pressure. This was different. I feel like I was just constantly being shit on, and I was just kind of like, well, that's probably true. I took such a hit in my self-worth during that time that it was just not a good fit. And again, I don't know what I expected. I didn't go into emergency medicine. I hated helping out in surgeries. Dude, talk about pressure. I hated the intensity of surgery. And so I was in general practice, and I was just drawing blood, giving fluids, clipping nails, cleaning out ears, finger up the dog's butt, squeezing their anal glands. And I was just like, oh, this is my whole life now. Yikes. You know what I mean? I thought I'd be okay with it, and I wasn't. And I was like, damn, God, I'm in a lot of debt to figure this out now. But, I did learn a lot in my job during that time. I was a manager at the school kennel. So our program, Mount Ida College, not a school any longer, but it did at one point when I went there in 2010 to 2014, it had this the #1 school in the country for animal nursing. So I was like, yeah, obviously I have to go there. It's right outside of Boston, tiny little school, 1,500 students, and maybe 500 of them were in the vet tech program. So the other big major there was funeral directing, and I lived with a girl in that program, and she was scary. And I say that now, I feel like I'm steeped in, I say that, I like my room, my house is filled with creepy dolls and animal bones. Okay. And I just told you about how I like eviscerated a carcass. So who am I? I guess I am the pot and I'm calling the kettle black. I don't care. Okay. I'm going to say it either way. She was just a freak weirdo. And one night we were getting ready to go out, and there's three of us in this, it was like a townhouse off campus. And, the other roommate's like, hey, can one of you guys do my makeup? I'm like, girl, I don't know. I only know how to do my makeup. I don't know if I can do your makeup. Like, I don't know. So the other girl, the funeral directing major, she was like, oh, I can, but you have to like close your eyes and lay down. Because she was like used to practicing on these like dummies. Okay. And then one day, just another quick tangent here. We share all these classroom buildings with the funeral directing majors. And we would sometimes be coming out of our lecture and they'd be wheeling a corpse, a dead body, covered, but like you'd see the outline, okay, through the friggin' auditorium. It was nuts. So anyways, that was an experience in and of itself, just seeing that every now and then. So anyways, the kennel manager, part of our program at Mount Ida was that you essentially rescue dogs, cats, and all these, the pocket pets, rabbits, etc., from research trials. Now, if you don't know, when animals are done in their research trials, they are euthanized. So our school made this deal with the local research places, whatever, in Massachusetts, to be like, all right, instead of killing them, what if you didn't and you sent them to our college and then they get tortured some more, essentially, is because for a whole year, the second or third year students in that program, you get assigned an animal and then you take care of it, but you also are practicing your blood draws, you're practicing ear cleaning, you're practicing general husbandry for these animals, but you're also getting ready for them to kind of become normal-ish, because a research animal's life is not normal. So they have to learn what stairs are. They have to learn what having a bath is. They have to figure out how to navigate like normal real life, which is very sad. And the dogs definitely took the biggest hit. I feel like the cats really just like didn't care. And then how can you tell if a rabbit's traumatized? I don't know. Didn't really have much insight into that at that point. So these dogs, anyways, they were all beagles. So imagine the sound. Have you ever heard a beagle? Imagine that, but there's like 30 of them in an enclosed space. And most of them eat their own poop, and they were humping each other. It was just nuts. And then you let them out in the yard to play, all of them. And it was just like, it was mayhem. It was complete mayhem. And so, yeah, I was one of the managers there for all 4 years, and it was crazy. But I did love those dogs, and I do have a soft spot for beagles, though I don't think I'd ever own one. Purely based on the noise level. Like, I don't think that I could handle that. But they are cute. They're really cute. So that was just an interesting part of my life. And do I regret going to college? Kind of. I mean, truly, I am in so much debt, and that's kind of looms large. But I feel like I learned all these really valuable lessons about how capable I am, and also what I don't want. And so that's good to know, right? It's like a good thing to know what you don't want. So I feel like I gained some independence and some feeling of like, okay, I have to really take charge of my life. I don't want to just languish here on Cape Cod. So my last year, I was living with my ex. We had already been broken up for months. Okay, I'm living in his screened-in porch. So it's really not a room. I'm in this screened-in porch, okay? There is a colony of mice. A colony of mice in there with me. And they're hiding nuts and seeds and lentils in my bed, in my clothes that are in this like organizing unit. I'm like, okay, no worries, just gonna shake that off my bed and pretend it's not happening. Now, this is where the drinking really came in clutch for me, where I was able to just kind of tune everything out, focus on the drinking, get up, go to my job every day, finish school, and just make it work. And I did. But I would be woken up probably 17 times a night with either something scurrying over me, or I'd be like throwing my shoes, trying to get them to shut up. because I would hear them all night scurrying, and it was just atrocious. Again, this is where the booze came in. Really, it's like again, to reference It's Always Sunny, it's like Charlie, he's like, we gotta come home, we gotta eat this cat food and drink this beer and huff this glue, because then it's gonna knock us out, and you're gonna want to be knocked out, because then the cats outside, there's like 50 of them, they're gonna start screaming, and you're really gonna want to be knocked out for that. That's what it was like, except for it was just me drinking vodka. So anyways, I moved in with a coworker for my last few months in Massachusetts, and I really was just like, I gotta get out of here. Like, I cannot be in Massachusetts anymore. I really thought that where I lived was the problem. Hey, guess what? It wasn't. The problem was me, in this way where, like, moving to a new city, state, whatever, is not going to address your trauma and your trauma responses and your self-sabotage and your numbing behaviors. But I was like, no, this will do it. So I went to a psychic. Great time. Love psychics. Hey, we all have the capability of being psychic, and I trust and believe that, and no one's going to tell me any different. So save it. Tell someone who cares it's not me. So anyways, I see her. I'm like, great, we're going to figure this out. I'm hoping she's going to tell me what to do. She's like, no, this is not how that works. You are going to learn how to tune into your inner wisdom. And I was like, I don't have any. She was like, yeah, you do. Shut up. So we wrote 4 different places on a piece of paper, flipped them over. I couldn't see them. And she was like, you're going to hover your hand over, and you're going to, whichever one feels right, that's going to be it. That's your body talking to you. And I was like, okay. So I'd written down Colorado, which was the scariest one to me because I had no support system here. California, I had family. That was another one I put down. And then a few other places on the East Coast where it would be easy to go home to my family. And I have extended family that lives, in Massachusetts as well. So I was just like, God, don't let it be Colorado. I really want to move there, but like, I'm so scared. So of course I run my hand over that and I go, oh, it's this one. And she's like, yep, it's Colorado. And I'm like, yep. Okay, well, here I go. And let me tell you something. When I decide I want to do something, and I make decisions pretty quick, some might call that impulsive. I just think that I'm confident in my choices. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm moving to Colorado now immediately. So I gave 30 days notice at my clinic, which they didn't deserve, but I did it anyways. And my mom kind of put out feelers because she knows everyone in our town. And she was like, does anyone know anyone who like lives in Colorado or whatever? Yeah. So this older couple, friend of a friend of a friend, they were like, yeah, we need someone to come take care of our garden. We have a big community garden. We need all this help. And my mom was like, sure, I'll send my kid out there. So I had about $200 in my bank account. I put just clothes and maybe a pillow in my trunk because I had no belongings, none. And that was the way I liked it for a really long time. And so, yeah, I like Skyped with them and we set it up. They're like, yeah, just come live with us. We can't pay you. And I was like, well, I'll figure that out later. They said, I can't pay you, but we need help around the house. You need to help us in the garden. I was like, sure. At the end of this month, here I come. So end of February, 11 years ago, I go out there. I live with these people, living in their spare room. And were they nuts? Yeah, a little bit, but not in like a dangerous, unsafe way. They were just an elderly couple who were like set in their ways, very anal about stuff, like super anal retentive about stuff, truly. And that was harrowing in certain ways, but I also just, me, at that point, I was just like, yes, sure, whatever. But after about 10 months there, and I did kind of learn a lot. I had a great time. I was gardening, like I knew very little about that, but I was like, hey, listen, I will work really hard. I can work all day. I just need some water, really, is all that keeps me going. I love being out in the sun. I love being in the dirt. I like doing physical, hard labor. And so I was just like the grunt worker at this big community garden. I did all the heavy lifting and I just really wore myself out every day. And I really liked that. I liked being away from my safety net. I felt so strong doing that and not knowing a single person in the entire state. I was like, I don't know a goddamn person here. Like, it's a new start. And it was a new start and a fresh start and all that. But I was just the same old me. And eventually I started the binge drinking. And it was just such a fallback of like, I'm uncomfortable. I don't know what to do. The novelty of this new living situation and job has worn off. So now I need something. And I'm working this lonely job. So like, I'm not meeting young people. What else do you do? So I did start to head down the same path that I always have. And that was kind of eye-opening where I'm like, oh no, moving didn't like fix me. So that was a letdown, but like a good learning lesson. And the towards the end of August of that year, I met my husband, and I'm going to do a whole episode on kind of my favorite things that I've learned about relationships. And I think never having been in a healthy one, meeting him and having him like me right away felt very like, ew. Like, what do you mean you like me? Me? Okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, of course you want someone to like you, but like up until that point, had only ever been attracted to unavailable men. And so I was just like, yeah, this doesn't like feel good. I don't really like this. So I will be friends with you though. And he was like, yeah, right. But like, I like you. And I was like, okay. So we navigated that. We're honestly still navigating this, because for me, it's still hard to be seen and loved and accepted. There's a part of me that really genuinely feels like that is not safe. Working on it. Hey, I've been in therapy for a very long time. Working on it. But yeah, he was just someone who like was ready to commit right up front. And so a month into dating, very loosely dating, because I was like, I'm just a wild horse and I'm just going to do whatever. And he was just like, okay, but I want to date you. And I was just like, what? So anyways, a month into that, he's like, I'm leaving this older couple's house because I'm at my wit's end. Love them, wish them the best. I'm at my wit's end. So I'm like, I gotta move. I gotta find an apartment. So he's coming with me apartment hunting, and he's just like, why don't you just live with me? And I'm like, what? So yeah, I did. Of course I did. I was like, I don't have to pay rent. Great. But we lived in this really small apartment with his two best friends. They're still his best friends. And there was one bathroom. So I just cleaned. The apartment to try and make up. I did eventually pay like a little bit of rent, but dude, it was all right. And we were like, for the first little bit, we were all drinking a lot. So that definitely smoothed out any rough edges. But yeah, so I stopped doing the community garden, but I kept working for one of the other people I met through that job. Met her family, loved her family, ended up nannying and helping on their farm and like cooking and cleaning and whatever for all these interconnected families. That was a beautiful thing. I really loved nannying, and I got my first exposure there to homeschooling in person and extended breastfeeding. Hey, I'll probably do an episode on like, I don't know, family stuff, but it was so shocking. But then like to see a 4-year-old breastfeeding, I was like, but I'd already gotten to know their family, so I knew that they weren't like crazy. And I don't know, it made sense to me in a way. Like it touched on this nerve of like, we're so disconnected from our kids. Like the homeschooling right away made sense to me, especially watching the way that they did it, where there was, hey, no Christian influence, which leave the religion out of everything. Okay. To me, you're allowed to be religious, but hey, I'm not. And I don't want it to have anything to do with school. Okay. Just my 2 cents. So anyways, and then they were doing it with other families. So their kids got the social stuff, all that enrichment, the friendship, navigating conflict, all that stuff in this very safe, controlled home setting. And they'd go to different like homestead farms each day of the week to learn different skills and stuff. And I was like, dude, this is the way to do things. I don't know, it clicked as someone who had never had exposure to any of it. I was just like, dude, hell yeah. So then when I had my daughter, it was even though breastfeeding was so hard, and it's not for everyone, 100%. I'm so stubborn. I was like, this is for us. My nipples almost fell off. They were turning black. It's a whole thing. I'll get into it a different time. But yeah, I breastfed my daughter for 4 years, and I know that sounds insane. One of the greatest things I've ever done, and I miss it. And she's 6 now. And I still miss it. It's this, I don't know. It's not going to like make sense to a lot of people, but I can't describe to you how close, how close you feel to your dog, or if you have kids, how close you feel to your kids. It's like this, I don't know. I just really treasured it and I miss it. Really got off topic here. Hey, ignore I said any of that. My next job, and we're kind of wrapping up here because this was my last series of jobs. I worked with at-risk youth, okay, in Balda, and there were these 2 connected like sister organizations that worked with at-risk youth, so youth that are misplaced displaced from their family due to usually abuse and neglect. And so there was a residential home, which I loved. And it wasn't my favorite job, but it probably was the most like fulfilling job that I had. I felt like a part of me truly come alive in this job of helping to care for kids who are between 12 and 18 who were displaced from their family. And some of them were with us pretty long term, like months. I feel like there was at least one kid who was with us for like a year. And yeah, I started out volunteering and then I started working there. And I just really, that experience of trying to be a safe adult for a kid who maybe has never had that. And there's all these rules and discipline, and I hated that. And I hated the paperwork, and I hated that I couldn't hug them. And I understand why you can't. I don't care. So it was so hard, and sometimes it was so tragic, but it was beautiful. And it was really scary sometimes. Like, you're there overnight trying to manage kids who have, I mean, serious mental health conditions, disorders, and kids sneaking out, kids bringing contraband in the house, kids getting their hands on weapons, okay? And that part was terrifying. And you're there by yourself overnight. There's no help. There's nothing. So it was rough, but what was even worse was working at the homeless shelter, which was part of their title. So I'm not going to say unhoused just because I'm so used to saying, I mean, I worked there, but it was a shelter for people who, youth, so they had to be maybe 16 to 24, and you could stay there overnight. You could come to the day shelter and get help with your education, applying for jobs, getting your social security, like all sorts of practical stuff, and you'd get food, and you could shower there. So, but yeah, being there overnight, and there's 24-year-old men there, you're a young woman, and there's no safeguards in place, and you're by yourself, and I hated that. So I maybe only did 5 overnight shifts there total. I worked a lot of overnight shifts at Res, and that was, I mean, they are still kids, truly. 12 to 18, those are children. But so those kids were scary. But some of them touched my heart, and I still think about them, and I hope that they're doing okay. But so yeah, that kind of was it from my work outside the home. One of the families I did nanny for, though, had a farm, and I feel like, especially when they would go on vacation and I would house it, any weird animal thing that could go wrong would go wrong. First of all, they had like 200 pigs, which is utter insanity, and they would like cannibalize each other. I'm not kidding. I would watch them rip each other's ears off, blood flying, just spraying. And they wouldn't really take great pains to feed them. They would get these pallets of expired food from like Safeway, whatever, it's like the Stop and Shop out here. And oh my God, these huge pallets full of expired everything. So whether it's cupcakes that you have to unwrap, like take out of these big plastic bins, wasps everywhere. I'm getting stung by wasps, I'm crying, whatever. And I'm having to just throw all this food by hand out of these big bins. It's all, half of it's rotting. I'm like, okay. So, and then when the pigs are like in this feeding frenzy, they'll like rip chunks out of each other. And I was like, this is so absurd. What are we doing? So, and they're so loud, and the stink coming off of just a field full of pig shit is unreal. So the pigs were terrible. They also had lots of dairy goats, which was nuts. And I loved the goats that I worked with before. They were like miniature goats at the farm, and there was maybe only 4 of them. That was manageable. They actually lost all of their goats in a fire, except for one mom and her 2 babies. Now, from there, they brought in bucks, they brought in a few others. So every year, these goats would like multiply like crazy. So at this point now, I think they keep it around 40 goats a year, which in goat terms, that might as well be 6,000, because the amount of destruction they create is crazy. They eat everything. They kick over everything. They can climb. They can jump. All they want to do is escape, constantly getting their heads stuck in the fence because they can like shove themselves through, and then their stupid horns catch on the way back. And if you don't get them and it's a hot summer day, that goat's dead, okay? I mean, it was a nightmare. It really was. I saw so many animals give birth. The pigs would give birth and then leave their babies, and I'd have to go out and check and try and find these piglets, and they'd be just cooked in the sun. I'd be like scream crying, having to pick up all these dead animals once again. And I'm like, yep, totally. I'm covered in wasp stings. I'm carrying dead animals. And then I'm having 100 times a day to go make sure there's no goats stuck in the fence. Then if they are, you have to go and you have to do physical battle with the goat to get them out of the fence. And they are not helping you at all. They're actively fighting against you. And then I'm doing that when they're out of town. Like, I'm not always managing the animals. When they're in town, I'm usually inside nannying their youngest child, taking her places, and cleaning up the house. Cleaning was the big thing because they have this big farm and they had 4 kids. So like, that's a lot to manage, right? So that's where I come in. I'm taking care of the kid. She's hanging out with me. She's my little buddy. And we're just cleaning up the house. We're doing laundry. We're running the dishwasher, whatever. But when they would go out of town, I would be like crying. I'd be like, please, I hope they don't leave. I hope their trip gets canceled. Because like, so many times there was like a goat that like immediately as soon as they left broke her leg, and I was like, cool, don't know what to do here, so I'm gonna call the number they gave me. Some random guy shows up in a 4-wheeler, like tapes her leg up. I'm like, great, thank you. Maybe a day later, they were watching someone else's horses. Okay, if you know anything about horses, they are just trying to kill themselves at all times, and they're so expensive to purchase, to own, to care for. The vet bills are crazy. So someone else's horses are there. There's this old ass horse where they're like, listen, she could die while we're gone. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. I'm like, oh, great. Because she's old. She's super old. So I go out to check on her one day. She's not dead, but she's so wrapped up in barbed wire fencing. Like she had maybe tried to jump out, but then she came down. She's mangled. She's so mangled. So I call the random guy in the 4-wheeler. He shows up again, helps me pull her out of this, and then we have to call an actual vet who shows up and sews her. I don't know. I couldn't be there for all of it because I had to, of course, go tend to the pigs who are murdering each other, okay? And I just would come back in the house at night and just cry myself to sleep because I'd quit drinking at that point. And eventually I was like, hey, I actually can't do this anymore. And the woman, I still have a relationship with her because she's great, love her. She was like, yeah, I get it, totally. She's very type B, rolls with the punches. I couldn't be more opposite. I was just like, this is actual chaos. I don't know how you ever handle any of this. I hope I never see another animal again. And I mean that. So she was like, yep, totally, no problem. You can like just be the nanny here and you help us clean and whatever. And I did right up until I had my daughter. I worked all through my pregnancy. I was gardening. I was helping take care of the animals. I was wrangling cows. Like I was doing so much stuff. I worked so hard during my pregnancy and I regret that now because I feel like I should have been resting, but I was like, no, not me. I'm different. Well, pregnancy's not going to slow me down. It should have. It definitely should have, but it didn't. So yeah, I worked right up to my due date, and then I took that weekend off, and like sometime during the next week I had my daughter, and I was like, yep, I'll be right back to work like as soon as I can. I'll take a couple months to like settle in. And she was like, no, you're not. Like, you're Molly, don't do that. Like, you need time. And I was like, no. Like, I gotta make money. And like, what am I gonna do? Sit around at home? I used to be so busy. Like, I could not relax. And so, yeah, I swore up and down that that's what I was gonna do. And then, geez, my daughter hated her car seat so much. And like, we spent so much time like breastfeeding. She didn't sleep well. Like, it was just this mess. I tried to come back to work when she was 6 months old. It was one of the worst days of my life. I'm not kidding. It was horrible. So I was like, nope, I'm sorry. She was like, I know. Like, don't worry about it. They were all so kind. I was working for her sister and her grandmother. They all completely understood. And I have always felt so loved and cared for by their family. So really grateful for that. But yeah, I haven't worked outside of our house since. And I'm really grateful for that too. Again, like, being a stay-at-home mom is work all the time. But I get to be with my favorite person in the whole wide world. And she's the best. She's, as someone who didn't want kids and didn't think that I could have any because I literally am so anxious. I was like, my body won't let me. I did. It was unplanned, and it's the greatest thing I've ever done. So that's just my hot take on motherhood. And yeah, so that's gonna do it for this 14-hour long episode. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Like, was it a little crazy? Sometimes, yeah. So that's just a little look into my life and why I am the way I am, I think. And I don't know, I turned out okay. Guys, did I die though? I have survived. So yeah, tune in next week. We're going to be doing mystery, probably 2 weeks in a row, I think. And I hope you enjoy it. Okay,